Laura, really nice to chat with you. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Now, we're going to be talking about A Doll's House too. But before we do, there's a couple of things I want to check in. And you've just pointed out you've got a lot of hats on the back door of your room there. You want to explain that? Because you said to me you're not a hat person. And I am calling you out. I am calling you out.
Oh, I know. I feel like I've tried over the years. I've got a deceptively large head. And so I feel like I've tried over the years to find a good hat. And so there's sort of various attempts at sun hats,
Right.
some, a cowboy hat, fedora hat. And then that was a costume hat.
Mm-hmm.
And then just baseball caps are always a good standby. But yeah,
Well,
I've acquired them. I figure they're useful, but I don't have them. So that's why they're hanging behind the door, which is normally pushed open. So I never see them. And
Fair enough.
I feel like I need to explain that as well. That's a
yes.
cartoon from when I did The Women at Court Theatre in Christchurch, and they had this amazing cartoonist come in and do sketches of the different characters. But it's not exactly in pride of place. It's behind a door above the cat litter tray. So no offense to the artist.
Well, it looks fantastic. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, do you ever sleep?
Oh God, I try to. I love sleeping.
Because you're popping up everywhere. I saw you last month in Roger Hall's Taking Off, and you were fabulous, as was the entire cast. But you seem to be everywhere, and I'm thinking, how do you fit this all in? How do you learn your lines? Because you're going from one show to the next. How does all that work?
Well, I have to say I've been trying to get the lines for A Doll's House Part 2 into my head basically since the end of the Roger Hall play. But in between, I spent a week on the story table at Shortland Street and then a couple of weeks writing a script of that, and then various other life things popped up. So, it's not. So we're in the first week of rehearsal now for A Doll's House Part 2, and I'm properly getting my brain kind of into it. As much as I can, because there are a lot of words, and the line learning is it's always everyone has their tricks, and I write mine out, like I sort of write them out in sections, and the act of writing it and kind of circling keywords and stuff helps them kind of go into my head.
Kind of solidifies it.
Yeah, and this time I'm trying another technique as well as I multitask, trying to get my steps in every day.
Right.
I've recorded some of the speeches into my phone, and so I'm walking around the local park looking like a lunatic as I mutter the words to myself, and my face is going and all this kind of thing. So it's because, of course, once you get the lines in your head, then you're much freer to kind of explore what's going on underneath them.
And play with the character and themes. Yeah, definitely. So it's A Doll's House Part 2. It's written by Lucas Nath, correctly. So crudely, it's a sequel to Ibsen's play, but it's obviously an entire reworking of the story. So what's your understanding so far after a week of rehearsals? What's the story about, and what attracted you to it?
Well, I feel I should clarify. Technically, I only had 2 days of rehearsal myself because I had a day of shooting on the Brokenwood mysteries this week as well, just to add to your sense of my busyness. But yes, even just sort of a couple of days into it, I'm already feeling that there's so much to explore. So A Doll's House Part 1, the Ibsen classic, is, rightly famous, and the door slam that was heard around the world is sort of how it's described when in the late 1800s, Nora walks out on her husband and children, and that was so shocking. It was scandalous at the time, but the interesting thing is that it still feels pretty shocking today. And so this play, audaciously titled A Doll's House Part 2, I'll just carry on from Ibsen, says Lucas Nath, it's fine, picks up the story 15 years later. So it's not really a reworking because the story has moved on. And so he imagines what's happened to Nora in that time, and how that might sort of affect her actions and her thoughts. But she comes back. She has to come back. Something has happened in her life that brings her back, and she has to deal with the people and the situation that she walked away from all those years ago. And there's so much in it. And it's written in quite a contemporary kind of style. The language is very contemporary. But the themes and the subject matter, even though the play is still set, late 1800, very late, 1890s or something by now, it feels very contemporary and very relevant still.
And so presumably she hasn't been in touch with her family. So there'd be a whole load of stuff that both the family and she needs to face up to.
Yeah. So much unsaid. And so it's a case of then what is said and when and to whom and how.
So Nora, just unpack her for a bit. What kind of character is she, and what are you trying to do with her yourself? And do you have the freedom to play with her?
I think we have to have the freedom to play with it. We have to make this our own. I mean, it is kind of daunting to take on one of the most iconic characters, in sort of the theatrical literary canon. But that's what's exciting as well, because people don't know what happened to her, after she slammed that door. And in terms of canon, in terms of the sort of modern usage of it, it's wide open. So Lucas Nath, the playwright, has kind of gone, how about this? How about it's this? And it's interesting for me to find echoes and flavors of the Nora that people might have seen in the original, but then see how she's changed and how she's developed. And she's such a complex character. It's so satisfying, challenging and satisfying to kind of go, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this, and there's so many layers and different ways you could play it, and how does she react with this person versus that one, all the stuff that you get when you're exploring a character and their relationships anyway, but just with an extra layer of this is a character that's really well known. Having said that, it's not essential for anyone to have seen the first play to understand what's going on in this one. There are enough little clues to kind of go, oh yeah, that happened. So if you have seen it, there might be some little moments you go, oh yeah, that's the payoff there. But it's absolutely not, it doesn't restrict anyone from enjoying this play if they haven't seen the first one by any means.
You mentioned earlier it was scandalous when it first played in the 1800s, because of course women didn't leave their children, particularly, nor their husbands. But so I can understand that scandal. Less so of a scandal now for people to divorce, but for a mother to leave her children, even to this day, would be quite a big thing.
It's agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, what's the central thing for you that's going through your mind as you're looking at this woman who's done something scandalous, but you must understand, because you're portraying her, that there's something else there going on. How are you kind of bringing that to the fore?
Well, it's interesting for me as well because I'm unmarried and child-free. So
you have a cat.
2 cats.
So you're a childless cat lady.
I'm a childless cat lady. I'm a powerful voting bloc in the United States of America right now. But so it's interesting for me because Nora comes in and makes these very staunch, if not righteous, kind of arguments about how marriage can be or is bad for women. And as a person who's been predominantly single most of her life, I'm like, yes, sister. So it's interesting. So I can definitely tap into a lot of that stuff and kind of go, yes, there's this and there's this, and this is all amazing. But I agree. I think it's still, women are judged harshly for leaving their children in a way that men aren't. And that is still relevant to this day. There is a different standard. I saw a little clip of something. It might even have been Shortland Street of people talking about, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was now, but it was something as someone saying to the effect of, how could you possibly leave your children? How could you put your own desires before your children? And I think that's a really interesting thing because men, it seems to me, very rarely penalized for putting their desires before their children, but women almost universally are. And so the idea that a woman should value her own goals and ambitions and hopes and dreams and seek fulfillment for those outside of being a mother is really interesting territory. And that's what I'm interested in exploring. Yeah.
Do you have empathy for her position?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I think is great about this play is that as it goes on, so, Nora gets on her soapbox and sort of makes her argument for, women should leave marriages and so forth. And, hopefully there'll be a big chunk of the audience that'll go, yes, that makes sense. And then other characters say their piece. And hopefully the audience will kind of go, oh, no, that's a good point. Yes, no, that's a good, so that the allegiances and the loyalties will shift between the characters, which is great because then you're invested. And hopefully after the play, people will have these conversations. Well, I agreed with that. Did you? Because I thought this was, hopefully it'll prompt those kind of discussions. If, not necessarily ruin marriages, but,
Now, tell me about Stephen Butterworth. I love always seeing him on stage or screen. What does he play? Is he the husband?
So he plays Torvald, the husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've never worked together before. So this is our first time. And actually today, after I finish this interview, it'll be my first rehearsal day with him. So yeah, so we'll get to kind of explore this, this relationship.
Well, I can still hear you, yeah.
This relationship between, I reread part one a few weeks ago, and it was so interesting to me to refresh my memory about and just look at that relationship, and it is interesting and complex, and he is patronizing but loving, sort of a benign sort of sexism, if you will, in it, and she's playing that role. And I think interestingly there is love in there, like what you see of them in that relationship, there is love, because what he does in that play, she feels is such a betrayal of their sense of their relationship that she feels justified in some way in doing, separate to her own kind of wants and needs. It's like, I thought you were this person and you're not, and I don't know if I can love that person. And so but then she does this thing which is, hugely destructive to their family. So then who's in the right, who's in the wrong, who's to blame, how is that sort of apportioned? And coming back to face up to that is what's the meat and the juice in this play.
Well, it's funny. I was just thinking that's meaty, and you've just said meat. So yeah, and those roles, I guess those roles are really satisfying to play, aren't they? The complexity and exploring fundamental human needs and desires and fears and frustrations, I guess.
Yeah, and all of that subtext is in there. Like there's times when they're throwing accusations at each other or challenges or whatever, but even just the smallest lines, it's kind of like, oh, there's something going on under that. There's something going on under that. And that's, you kind of go, oh, but do I play that or do I play this? That's the fun part of it, to explore all that.
Well, that's exciting. I just want to finish off with a couple of things that are not related to the play. So you mentioned Brokenwood Mysteries, and it's doing so well overseas. I think it's even on Amazon Prime Video now, isn't it? And I understand it's big in Germany. Have you had any personal feedback at all, or any audience kind of stuff for you now that it's getting global attention?
Not for me personally, no. I have to say, because I've written a couple of episodes as well with my writing partner Roy Ward, and so for curiosity's sake or research or something, we've joined a couple of the fan groups on Facebook.
Right, yeah.
And that is very interesting. But one day I did find an entire thread devoted to how much they prefer Shane Cortez's lawyer to my lawyer in Brokenwood. He's just very handsome, Andrew. You see, it's hard to argue with handsome. So.
Well, as a gay man, I feel comfortable to say you're a very beautiful woman. And actually, well, speaking of which, have you ever watched the American sitcom Mom?
Oh, I've caught little bits of it, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a character that comes in, I think it's around the third season, and she has the same haircut and same body as yours. She's fabulous. And whenever I see her, I can't remember the actress's name now, but whenever I see her, I think could be Laura. Same hair, same hairstyle, same same charisma. It's wonderful.
Bitch got my job.
Yeah, exactly. The show was cancelled, but if they ever do, a remake,
reboot. I'm ready to go. I'll let my agent know.
So, final couple of little things. Is there anything about you that we don't know? You don't have to share anything if you don't want to, but I thought I'd throw it in there. Is there any little, not a secret exactly, but just something?
The hats? No.
Yeah, we've covered that.
The hats is a lie. The hats is a lie.
Well, the hats will do. That's fun. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I think people know that I have cats now. That's, they're my cat mates. So they're a part of my life. I try to keep plants alive.
I can see one there, yeah.
There's one there, which I've kept alive. And that's progress for me, because in the past I have been known to kill cactus. So wow. I feel proud of myself. Do you know what it is? It's I don't do well with succulents or cacti because food is love and water is food. And so I overwater them because I love them and they die.
So you drown them?
Yeah.
Is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I make them rot in their pots.
And I promise this is the final question. Okay. Do you have a go-to comfort food? Is there something that you just can't live without?
Not so much a meal, but I'm such a fan of chips. Like potato chips or fries, that's. Do you know what I've got into recently? Because I'm far from a domestic goddess, and because I live alone, I mostly just get meals for one. It's fine, some protein and some salads. Boom, you're done. I don't do anything adventurous. But I've recently rediscovered that I know how to cook lasagna. And so
right.
Lasagna from the good old Edmonds cookbook, even.
Yeah.
Lasagna with garlic bread. That is a comfort meal for me, and it puts you in a food coma afterwards. So straight to bed for that sleep that we talked about.
Do you ever make deliveries?
They are. It is quite good, to be fair. No, my family mocks me because like when we have family gatherings, I do new potatoes with lots of butter and whole grain mustard, and it's a thing that I do. And my nephew gives me absolute shit about it. He's like, "Oh, Laura's potatoes again." I'm like, yeah, all right. You're still eating them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I might message you an order for those potatoes and the lasagna sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
I'll be on standby. Yeah.
Brilliant. Hey, Laura, lovely to talk to you. Always is. And all the best for the upcoming season, and looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Lovely to talk to you.